start recording, and then I will count us in. So 3, 2, 1. Well, welcome everybody to week 2 of Formula G here on YouTube. This week we were in France / Monaco. So my name is Zotomo, and I'm joined as always by Calamity. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I can't wait to get into this one because I did well in this country compared to the last time. So let's start off as always by taking a look at those locations in the feature and sprint race. So yeah, our feature race, here's the map. Seed location number 1, pretty interesting, on the island of Corsica.
Yeah, the seed in general was relatively easy, as you'll see by the points later on. Location 1 in Corsica basically started you out already looking at some signs that told you everything you needed to know. It told you you're close to Ajaccio, which I'm going to assume like at least 90% of the players would recognize as being on Corsica. And even if you don't, you should, by the landscape in and of itself, should be able to find it eventually. It's a relatively big city as well. And it had a lot of other signs as well to cities or villages closer by. That basically meant you pretty much barely had to move at all to get that location right.
Yeah, for me it was just obviously very tropical, or not tropical, but more humid kind of, coastal area with the plant life. So I was like, okay, well, I know France has overseas territories, so check out all the islands. And I started in the Mediterranean, and sure enough, there it was. So a very obvious seed for round 1. Round 2 put us in the heartland of France.
Yep, right down there in the middle. It had to the east, relatively close by, it had a sign that told us we're on the N7, which alongside the A roads in France are unique, so you can find it. That's how I did it. Other than that as well, it also had a sign telling you Nevers is, I think it was something like 30 kilometers away, which is also a city that you might be able to find if you search for it on the right zoom level. I don't actually know if there was any good information to the west. Looking at the map right now, it doesn't really look like it. But I think you were so close to the good information on the east that just looking at the location, that might have been the logical way to go anyway. And even if you eventually decided to turn around, you should have still found everything you needed to here.
Yeah, the major road N7, and then if you traveled around a little bit, you did find some town names, and just a matter of scrolling along the road until you found them. So nothing too tricky here. Round 3, not too far south, outside of Lyon for this one.
Again, this one actually, was that the one? I think so. This one started you in unofficial coverage, which was interesting, but it took like 2 clicks or so to get out of it. But still, that's a bit of a shock every time you start in something like that. I went to the west and eventually found some more useful signs that told me we're not that far from Lyon, and some kilometer signs to some smaller villages nearby, which eventually made it possible for me to find the right location. Again, I think east there would have probably been similar signs there, but I don't know, I didn't check.
Yeah, for me it was just, once you see that sign for Lyon not too far away, you zoom in and you're able to find all the smaller road numbers you have and village names. So not too difficult. Round 4, an urban location in a town. For sure.
Urban locations for me are always horrible in France, because France is one of those countries that doesn't really like to put their town or city name anywhere. So I had to walk around for quite a while until I found out that we're in Charleville-Mézières, a city that's relatively big, but doesn't have a big football club. So I, of course, never heard of it. I did hear of it before. I had no idea where it is, though. So I've actually funny thing there. I found on a billboard, I found the city name of Sedan, which is the city just next to it to the east. And that has a football club, so I recognized it and I was looking for that. They show up at the same Zoom level, so it didn't really matter too much in the end anyway. But yeah, with 5 minutes of time, you should find any city you're looking for in most countries, as long as you know the name of it.
Yeah, for me, at the lower end of the skill level, being in town, like you said, just sucked because I was like getting like going down small side streets and not finding things, and oh crap, where did I come from? And trying to go back. But you do pick up, you get a few town names, even if it's not, you're not sure it's the one you're in. But then you also get a few road numbers, and you can kind of guess, well, this looks a little bit more northern France. And just having 5 minutes probably saved me a couple thousand points there, where I was able to just start scrolling and eventually got close. I didn't get an ace on this round, but got within obviously because of Réunion, within 4,000 something points. So it was pretty nice.
Yeah, for me as well.
And
I think it took me like 3 minutes to find out which city, or find the city itself, and then pinpointing took like 30 seconds. That was the easier part of that round.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Les Réunions, that's where we were for round 5. You can see a little overlay on the screen there. We were in the south corner of the island, which was pretty obvious as well.
Just a slight correction there. It's La Réunion.
La Réunion?
Yep.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But yeah, Réunion is very easy to identify based on that it just looks completely different than mainland France.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were signs not too far away. If you went west as well, you crossed the bridge that told you the river, which is coincidentally also the name of the little village. It also told you relatively close by that you were on the N2 between two bigger cities. I don't quite remember which of them it was, but
St. Joseph and something. But
yeah, I can probably look it up quickly which it were, but I don't think it matters too much. And actually, wait, I've just got it right here. I just need to. It's Saint Joseph and if it unblurs, Saint Benoit. Those were the two. And I still haven't found Saint Benoit. I have no idea where that is, but it's somewhere probably. But yeah, so a very easy round to finish it off, and pinpointing as well. You've got quite a bit of leeway, given how big the map is, considering it includes France and Réunion. So even if getting it perfect was a bit tricky, considering you didn't have many points of reference there, but just getting the 5K wasn't too hard there.
Yeah, we did start by a point of interest. Relatively, it was a little bit hard to tell if the map was accurate or not, but again, the road, nearby towns, as well as a bridge really close by helped you really narrow it down. And I think I might have been pushing my luck with getting that 5K, because I was pretty far off, but it still gave me full points.
Yeah.
So I definitely was taking full advantage of the size of the map for that one. I don't want to know how close I was.
You weren't that close actually. Redirect was 62 meters away on that, so 24 meters further than you still got a perfect score.
Okay.
So yeah,
I just saw how far I was and I was like, whew, that was close. But maybe I had a little bit more room to work with, so not bad. Oh, very nice. Well, yeah, very interesting set of locations for the feature race. And for the sprint race as well, we were in the city of Monaco itself. Very, very small and very, very short time limits were given to players. The fastest time was only 30 seconds to complete the challenge, and the longest was 2 minutes with 10-second intervals in between. Calamity just crammed in there right on the coast.
Bit of other things to talk about first. We decided to include, we have to include the sprint race here either way, because it gives as many points as the feature race, and it would be kind of nonsensical to not talk about it a bit more. But all of you nice people sending us your videos of them. We can't really make a separate video out of the sprint race because, for like, especially here, because it'd be a 3-minute video, and it's kind of pointless. And the main problem is also that the locations are in a different order for everyone, because it's the same 5 locations but with different seeds. So the order is randomized every time. So that makes it a lot harder as well. But we decided to at least use your footage to show off a bit here in the background while we talk about the locations themselves. So yeah, the 5 out of the 5 locations we have here, I'll just go through it by the order that I had in my seed. I think that's the easiest way for me to do it. Location 1 was relatively close to the harbor, in the famous Raskas chicane. So that was number 1 of, I think it was 3 or 4 locations that were on the actual Formula 1 racetrack in Monaco. Looking at it again, it was 4, yeah. And that was one of the easier locations to find as well, even if you wouldn't recognize it from the Formula 1 track. I did, so it took me like 20 seconds to get it right. But yeah, anytime you're very close to the harbor in Monaco, you shouldn't have too many problems with that. Yeah, then we went on to round 2. And yeah, I think that's probably where I can't unfortunately see the rundown for every single person's stats where they lost which amount of points, but I'm probably guessing that round 2 was the one where most people lost their points, if they did, because that was the only location that wasn't on the racetrack, and it was very far north in Monaco. It was not too hard, I think, to find out which street you're on, the street being the Boulevard d'Italie, but finding that in the limited time you had is not that easy. For the people who had more time, not too much of an issue still. If you've got 2 minutes, you can probably find any road you want in Monaco. But for the people with less time, like 30, 40, 50 seconds, quite difficult to do. And again, without the knowledge of the racetrack helping you out there, most points were lost here. Then we went back to the racetrack for round 3 in the famous hairpin. Wait, why does it... That's interesting. Okay, because round 1 was the Raskas chicane. Round 3 is the Raskas curve. I wasn't aware of that, but that's interesting. Interesting coincidence there. But yeah, that's also probably one of the more famous, maybe even the most famous turn in Monaco. I think you could argue that. So not too difficult to find as well, considering the layout of the track. And if you went a bit further, you would have also found like the sea. Is that the sea? That's probably the sea, yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah,
it's not a lake, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a sea or ocean, but no, it's a sea. So yeah, it wasn't too difficult of a round. And then we had round 4, again close to the harbor, but this one was, I think, a bit more difficult to pinpoint. At least probably the most difficult to pinpoint out of the 5 locations. If it's difficult or not, I didn't manage to do it, but I kind of gave up on the sprint race to begin with, so maybe I'm not a good indicator for that. But yeah, that was the chicane you cross when you come out of the tunnel in Monaco on the racetrack. The chicane is actually sort of on Google Maps. It looks a bit weird on the map, but it also has a POI. I just didn't really recognize that it was the chicane when I was in game, so that probably didn't help. And then we had round 5, which was on the other side of the tunnel, which then again was a lot easier to find, especially if you had the locations in that order. I guess that's also kind of interesting, having these locations in a different order, because for some of them, it might help you out a lot if you had a different location beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's actually quite an interesting aspect I haven't thought about before. But
Yeah, with your 3 and 5 close, if you had them back to back, that
mm,
would be really beneficial. But yeah, having two either at the beginning or the end might have also helped you get one of it, kind of get it out of the way, so to speak, and then have the rest on the track and you already know what you're doing.
yeah,
Could be a factor as well. Yeah.
or maybe
Yeah, very nice.
like having two at the end, just so that you're not demotivated by missing the pinpoint there already, and then still having 3 more rounds to go, something like that. Also, might be influential.
Yeah, very nice. Is Monaco the only race in Formula One, an actual Formula One that takes place on real street roads?
No, there's a couple more. There's Singapore, for example. There's also Azerbaijan in Baku, and I think the UAE, the Abu Dhabi race also at least partly takes place on actual streets.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
I think that's most of them. I might have forgotten one, but those are the ones I could think of right now.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it. A little bit of F1 trivia for you all in the video. Thanks, you, Calamity. Yeah, so let's see what this all means for the drivers and their results. So first, the feature race results. As you can see, about half the field got a perfect score. This was a bit of an easier seed, so we can see that the total distance away from the points comes into play quite a bit here. Max FI taking first place with 29 meters. Steal This Nick 33 meters, and Symphalix or Giovanni 34 meters, 1 meter behind him. And then you, Calamity, with Tall Impala tying for fourth there.
It's yards, not meters.
Oh, it's yards. That's right. I did it correctly on the overlay, but then my mind still thinks. Yeah. The real funny thing is I'm an American and I don't think of yards anymore because I've lived in Japan for so long. Everything is in meters in my head. So
we normally would have done it in meters anyway, but because Ben the host does his in yards because he's British, that means that Tall Impala and me tied based on yards. So he sort of averaged the points, I think, and gave us both the same amount. Whereas in meters, Tall Impala was like half a meter or something closer than me. But yeah, I'm personally fine with it either way, as long as it's consistent. There's also the argument to be made about whether you should count time as a tiebreaker rather than distance. There's arguments for and against that, but I'm fine with it either way as long as it stays the same throughout. And that way, at least, you sort of have to decide whether you want to be very accurate and potentially get first place, or whether you want to be as fast as possible and secure yourself the 5 bonus points for getting the fastest 25k. And I kind of like that split up there. Also have to mention the fastest 25k this week goes to Tall Impala with a time that was, well, ridiculously fast, but probably explainable by him being French. I think it was like...
I was about to say, yeah.
I think it was like 6.5 minutes for the whole seed. Very good times from a lot of people. I think Giovanni was as well around 10 minutes or so. A couple more people were around 13 minutes. So yeah, very fast by a lot of people. And as you've said before, a relatively easy seed, so a lot of 25Ks. And yeah, then a couple of meters up and down, it's very, very hard to get that right while playing. Some of the locations weren't that easy to pinpoint exactly. Like the location that started in the unofficial coverage was a bit hard because it was just like in a curve with no like points of interest or no side roads like directly going off it. But yeah, overall, I think most of the people that we expect to put up good scores at this point did so. A couple unfortunate results, I guess. The Baseman dropping 6 points, and after what did he? I think he won the sprint race. I think did he win the feature race last week? I've forgotten already.
Something like that. Yeah, I can look it up here.
Yeah, no, I think it
Give
was
me a
it
second.
was the feature race that he won, with his 24,999 in Australia. I remember
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So yeah, bit of a drop down the table for him this week. And Barry Fishy Bear as well, only 13th after he's been doing very well so far in the season. But yeah, other than that, pretty much as expected. Maybe Jack E562 with a better result than we've seen from him so far. Unfortunately, even though he got the perfect score, they're only gonna get 2 points for it. Just a bit
Yeah,
too
very,
far
very
away.
tough competition. Yeah. Yeah, and something else to mention at the bottom of that table there, Subtle and Clutch Airball in red. That is their third DNS, so they are out of the competition. So Lancaster and Nordhagen will be bringing up their reserve drivers, Wakelock and DeFizz, respectively, to take their place. We saw Wakelock last week step in and did very well for himself, so that's probably a big boost to Giovanni to have a teammate like that be joining him in a regular, on the regular. That's what I wanted to say. DeFizz hasn't been taking part in Formula G2 and has not been filling out any of the G1 just in case Clutch doesn't play. So the organizers will have to get on him to see if he is still open to compete. But we'll be hearing more about that in the coming days for sure on the Reddit and in the Discord.
The seat will definitely be filled. It's just not 100% clear yet by who.
Yeah, and also because we have those two reserve drivers stepping up, two drivers who did not qualify in the top 30 for the placement events, will have a chance to move up into one of those seats. So we'll have to see how those get filled as well. So yeah, definitely something to keep your eye on in the next week. And then the results for the sprint race, not as many people getting 25k Calamity, but still quite a few. But a very sharp drop off, maybe because of that location number 2 that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and as I've said before, during the location, I did 2 practice games on Mapper's Monaco map before that, and then I just gave up on it because I thought with 50 seconds I can't pinpoint in Monaco. It seems kind of like a strange thing to say because it's such a small country, but I'm bad at Monaco and I don't really know why. But yeah, I think generally having more time here was very, very beneficial for you. Steele is Nick winning the race. I think he had the full 2 minutes for himself. So that made it a lot more doable for him to pinpoint these locations. Let me actually look. I didn't quite check that. Did we have anyone doing really well with a short time? Jack had... Yeah, he didn't have too much time. Right? Jack had 1 minute 10, I think. Closed had 1 minute. So yeah, still some people with less time putting up good scores nonetheless. And yeah, of course, as you said before, that sharp drop off, that one location not being on the main Formula 1 track, probably the one that caused that, especially because Ben said beforehand that you'd probably do well to memorize where the Formula 1 track goes in Monaco. So I assume a couple of people did that. But yeah, you drop points very, very quickly if you're just slightly off. I think in that one round I mentioned before that I didn't quite manage to pinpoint, I was like 50 meters off, and I dropped like 1,500 points. So, yeah.
Yeah, very tough indeed. Yeah, you definitely can see M the Baseman and Mr. Blue GG, who were at the top of the feature race last week, having the shortest time, and they were both towards that bottom of the pack there. So very, very rough in that time. Definitely equalizing the things out like it's kind of intended to. So it's at least in the first 2 weeks, it's doing its job, which is quite impressive. But Slovak goalie placing pretty high up. Still out of the points despite his efforts, but he's getting really close. So we're hoping to see him maybe improve a little bit as the season progresses. But yeah, okay. Well, let's look at how the points changed the table. Closed, I think, stays on top from last week, but Max FI, Steal This Nick, both making big leaps up to the top of the table with 50 and 48 points respectively. Tom, Paula, and Clement, I think you guys both stay pretty much in the same spot, fourth and third. But then, of course, with those very short times available in the sprint race, some of the players high up did drop a bit in the table. Mr. Blue and M the Basement, you can see a little bit further down. And our two reserve drivers, Wakelock and DeFizz, are now on the standings sheet. Wakelock picking up 15 points from last week, and DeFizz at 0, having not been able to compete so far. So that rounds out the standings. Anything from you here, Calamity?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that for some reason, I might be imagining it, but it looks a lot closer still than it did last week. Closed still pretty comfortably in first place, but from like second place down to maybe even 14th, like the gap is not that big, and just one bad or excellent weekend for either of those drivers can make a massive difference in the table still. And I'm looking forward to see how that evolves in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and all those players are good, so you know that all they need is a bit of a chance, and they'll take full advantage of it. You know, Mr. Blue, M the Basement, Giovanni, Simi, all gonna take anything they can get, and so you can't kind of rest on your laurels, so to speak, with only about 10 points above them for sure. So yeah, let's then move on to the constructor standings. Oberhausen maintaining that lead with Close still putting up some very good performance, 1 point off of 100 already. So quite impressive. But now every team does have some points.
Yep.
Opava picking up some points this week. And Lancaster will be hoping to the boost of a reserve driver coming on to boost them up in the standings, while Chariot, my team, dropping quite a bit, having some problems in France. But
yeah, I don't think there's too much to say about the Constructors Championship at this point yet. Similarly to the Drivers Championship, a lot can change in a single week, and yeah, we'll be looking more at these kind of standings once we actually get into like week 6, week 7. Once we can say, okay, this team is now definitely looking good to finish in this sort of area in the table, rather than, well, maybe they'll finish towards the top, maybe they won't, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Mathematically, everybody is still viable and in the race, so we have to wait till much later till the math eliminates a few people, and we can have a clear kind of championship race between one or two teams. But okay, well, let's move on and check out the maps we'll be playing in the feature race and sprint race for week 3. A bit of a change up here, Calamity. We are not on a country map. We're in a state map of Canada, Quebec, or province, as those Canadians like to call it. And then in Montreal for the city. Yeah, so the map is Quebec by Mapper. Average score 18,907 points. Been played almost 9,000 times with almost 9,000 locations. So definitely not practicable, despite it being quite only a province rather than an entire nation.
I mean, it's practicable, but yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Quebec as a province for Geoguessr?
Yeah, I like Quebec. It's relatively well signed, especially in like the southeastern part of it. It just has a couple of roads that lead more towards the north of the country, where it might be a bit more difficult to find good information. Probably what I'd recommend is just take a bit of a better look at these two areas, one around Lac Saint-Jean and sort of northeast, and one almost at the border to Ontario in the northwest, where there's a couple of cities that have their coverage over there. The rest of it is relatively dense in the southeast, and it shouldn't be too difficult, again with 5 minutes, to find out where you are there. It might be interesting in terms of pinpointing, especially considering that's the tiebreaker for 25Ks, because as it is usually in the US or Canada, there's a lot of straight roads that don't really have many features that could help you.
Yeah, especially in the northern part of the province, long straight roads with not much to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, Montreal though, a very beautiful city and should definitely pose a very interesting and scenic sprint race host for
Yeah.
next week. Yeah.
I've been there before. I don't know if that if I'll have any advantage because of it, but maybe I'll find a point I'll recognize. Uh, but yeah, will definitely be a fun map to do. I think it's a bit smaller than Melbourne, but still
Yeah, I don't
very
think it's
yeah.
at least in terms of like square kilometers. I think it's smaller. Population might be closer or more. I don't know.
I still think it's probably smaller population wise as well, but yeah, probably going to be very interesting. And still very densely populated though. I haven't
Yeah,
looked.
definitely
I
dense.
haven't looked at the street names yet, but I don't think they help you figure out in which area of Montreal you are. So yeah, might be helpful to do a bit of practice there.
Yeah, very nice. Well, thank you all for watching. Hope you liked this coverage of week 2 of the Formula G series of Geoguessr competition. If you liked the video, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. We do videos every week for this, as well as other competitive events as they occur. So we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye.